How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and here we are. We've made it to the wild card recap, ladies and gentlemen, for the 2019-2020 NFL playoffs. So we got 4 games to cover, and I made sure I included one question for each team that played on wild card weekend, just to add some extra content to the video. Since we're only covering 4 games, you might as well throw in a little icebreaker type of a question. But drop a like on this video if you enjoy the weekly recaps, man. Honestly, I like doing them because it allows me to kind of talk about all the action that's been going on. I mean, yeah, making these little update videos recently on coaching decisions and Tua declaring or whatever, like, yeah, it's been fun, but this is what I like to do, along with the grading videos, of course, which we'll be doing another one of those after the Super Bowl. We'll be grading all the playoff teams. So let's just go ahead and get started based on the order in which the games were played. So you already know how we do it around here. We're going to start off with the first game that actually happened, and that is the 5th-seeded Buffalo Bills going into Houston to face the 4th-seeded Houston Texans. The Texans, of course, like we talked about in the prediction video last week, they won the AFC South, so they get the right to a home playoff game. Good for them. Let's see how it turned out. Well, actually, we know how it turned out. Houston won 22-19 in overtime. And first off, I think we have to talk about Josh Allen, because for the first 3 quarters, man, he was really good, and he started to turn my head there for a second, because in all honesty, the reason why I chose Houston over Buffalo, if you remember in the prediction video, was because I simply trust Deshaun Watson way more than I do Josh Allen. And Josh Allen, to me, answered a lot of questions early. I mean, of course, the trick play where he caught a touchdown from John Brown, like, yeah, that was really good, but he was making a lot of throws from a lot of different angles, to the sideline, over the middle. He was extending the chains. They had him run like quarterback power and quarterback sweep, and they had him do like a lot of different quarterback designed runs. And I just loved the way that they were using Josh Allen in the first 3 quarters, but it felt like when Houston started to come back into the game, it kind of felt like he was doing too much in the 4th quarter and in overtime. And honestly, I think that's what cost it them, was him kind of making some mistakes. Of course, early in the 4th quarter, he had that fumble, a really bad fumble, by the way, in like the 4th quarter. Then in overtime, like, he got a little antsy, he tried to shuffle past it backwards to like one of his players. I think Dawson Knox had to like basically tap it out of the field of play so it wouldn't be a turnover. And Josh Allen, I don't know, he just started playing bad, started making a lot of questionable decisions in the last 2 quarters of that game. But overall, man, I thought he played very well, and I thought he did answer a lot of questions. And Buffalo fans, I'll be honest, I've said it a few times, man, I was not the highest on Josh Allen in the 2018 draft class. I thought he was going to be more of a prospect, or a project instead of a prospect. But he's shown a lot of ability, and if anything, he's living up to the white Cam Newton comparison very well. Cam Newton, of course, is not the most accurate quarterback, but as a prospect, they're actually very similar. So that's actually crazy to think about. So yeah, he is living up to that, running the football very well. He's definitely improving on his accuracy, but we'll talk more about the Bills and their future in the question. But now we got to focus on that boy Deshaun Watson, man. In the second half, he came to life. In the first half, very discouraging. He spent a lot of that time running for his life or on his back, because in this game, the Bills pass rush was able to get 7 sacks on Deshaun Watson, and the first 4 sacks were just 4 down linemen blitzing. So no blitzes, excuse me. So the first 4 sacks of the game was only the 4 down linemen rushing. So there were no blitzes, no anything like that. Just the 4 defensive linemen going after him. After that, they started to dial up like safety blitzes, nickel blitzes, all sorts of different things to get at the quarterback, especially on play action. DeAndre Hopkins was pretty quiet in the first half, but in the second half, man, he started to turn it up, started to see more of Tre'Davious White, and he, took command of the matchup. I wouldn't say he owned it, but he definitely took control of it. made some big plays. DeAndre Hopkins lined up a lot in the slot in the first half, and Taron Johnson did a good job on him. I think he had 3 targets, but no catches allowed, which is very good. I mean, but Tre'Davious White, of course, got to see more of him, in the second half, and Hopkins had a big day. Good to see that, but now we have to ask ourselves these 2 questions. So we'll start off with the Houston Texans, the winner of the game. Can the Texans go on a legit playoff run, or is their time going to be up in Kansas City? Because Kansas City is going to be the team they're facing, and we'll talk about why that is here in a bit. But they're going to have to face Kansas City for a second time this year. Of course, they did beat Kansas City on, early in the year, but that was without Tyreek Hill and a limited Patrick Mahomes. I think he was, banged up or whatever, had like the weird ankle injury. But, these 2 teams did play each other, and Houston did outlast Patrick Mahomes. Watson had that great fourth quarter where he went like 14 of 15 passing and had 2 touchdowns, basically putting the team on his back once again. And, he played very well in that game. But it was like a 19-13 game. It was very close. I think Kansas City had a chance to win late, if I remember the game correctly. But can this team go on a legit playoff run? I imagine they can, but I'm going to be honest, man. It really just depends on which version of the Houston Texans we're getting, because they're a very inconsistent football team. And I think that game against Buffalo pretty much proved why, because in the first half, this team did a whole lot of nothing. And then in the second half, they kind of woke up and did some really good things out there. So I'll say yes, they have the capability of going on a run. They're a very hot and cold team, though, so I wouldn't trust them. But this game against Kansas City, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're at home in Arrowhead. There is no New England to worry about, so Kansas City, I mean, let's be real. If they can somehow, face either Tennessee or Baltimore, which, spoiler, yeah, Tennessee did beat New England. That's the game we're going to transition to. Then who knows for Kansas City? They might be playing in a Super Bowl. But let's talk about the Titans versus Patriots. Derrick Henry accounted for 76.3% of the offense, man. He had over 180 rushing yards. I believe he had 1 touchdown. Yeah, I think he had 1. No, he didn't. He didn't, but he did run for 182 yards. The touchdown was actually Ryan Tannehill to Anthony Ferkser early on in the game. And then the second touchdown was a Brady pick 6 by former New England Patriot Logan Ryan. What a way to go out for the the GOAT right there, Tom Brady. That's tough, but we'll talk more about him later. The Patriots offense did struggle. They did run the ball well, though, with Sony Michel. I'm surprised they didn't run it a little bit more. But, yeah, the wide receiver play was really bad. Julian Edelman had a couple of drops. Some bad throws in there as well from Tom Brady. Just not a good game. And just a very frustrating team to watch, because I honestly thought the Patriots would win. That's why I picked them. It's hard to bet against them at home, and then I think, they lose at home. What the hell? But let's see here. We talked about, Brady's last pass was a pick 6. But Mike Vrabel, man, this is what I want to talk about, because I'm actually really fascinated in all these little small things about football. Mike Vrabel pulled a Bill Belichick on the man himself. So this is what Mike Vrabel did. So basically, it was 4th down, and they wanted to milk some of the clock so they can decrease the chances of, the Patriots trying to come back. And, that way they could have a better chance to pin the team deep on a punt. So what they did was essentially take 2 penalties on purpose. So the first one was a delay of game. Okay, so it backs them up, gives them more space to punt the ball and pin them, within the 5-yard line of New England. So they take the delay of game penalty, and then right after that, they have a guy intentionally jump off sides, or not offsides, but they have a guy, commit a false start penalty, and Belichick is like, oh shit, man, I already know where this is going. And I think they did it again, but in like a different way. Like I think someone jumped off sides and they like declined the penalty. I don't know, man, but it was just so fascinating because Belichick, of course, did that earlier on in the year against the New York Jets when they were blowing them out, and Belichick just kind of smiled and laughed about it. So it was just kind of funny, like dude's getting a taste of his own medicine from a disciple of his and a former player, Mike Vrabel. So that's just, I don't know, a funny little story to me. Very funny, very cool to see. And then they do end up pinning the Patriots deep in their own territory. Brett Kern, one of the best punters, if not the best punter in the league. And, you know, Brady throws a pick six like a play or two after. So I would say it worked for that team. The question we got to ask about New England, you know, what's next? You know, it's a simple question, a basic question you'll see on every talk show. What's next for New England? And I guess I can kind of dive into that because Tom Brady basically came out on a long, lengthy Instagram and Twitter post about how he's not retiring, you know, and he just doesn't plan on retiring. He wants to play again, wants to keep proving people wrong or whatever. You know, good for him. Obviously, Tom Brady still has motivations. Not because he's kind of done everything, but it's like he wants to prove that like an old quarterback can still go in this league, and he will be 43 next year. He is actually an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his career, so wow, interesting to see what he's going to do. I imagine he stays in New England. That's just my guess. Just a one-year deal. Let's see. Then also, you know, Josh McDaniels could potentially be the Cleveland Browns' new head coach. We'll see after the weekend. I imagine he sticks around because, you know, he had an opportunity to take a coaching job already last season, and he didn't do it. So, obviously, he's going to be sticking around. That's my assumption anyway. And then you look at, like, kind of like the roster. Like, yeah, there's definitely room to improve. It's not like they're a broke organization. Like, they're going to have money that they can play around with. You know, guys are going to become free agents like Mohamed Sanu, and I'm pretty sure the Patriots will get a compensatory pick for him, and like they know how to do the whole system, okay? Like this is nothing for them. So what's next for New England? I imagine they just try to run it up once again. They try to run it back and see what they can do next season. I think it might be the wisest thing to do, or the more wiser decision for them to make, but again, we'll see. And then of course, how good of a chance do you give the Titans against the Baltimore Ravens, because that's who they would be playing. Now, we've seen the Baltimore Ravens face the Bills, Texans, Chiefs, and Patriots in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, in the regular season, and they beat everybody except for Kansas City. You know, Kansas City's the one team that beat Baltimore in the regular season, so we've seen Baltimore against the field already, and they've beaten everyone except Kansas City. So how would they fare against the Titans? Well, to me, I actually give the Titans a legitimate chance of beating them. That's just my early assessment, because of course I'll do predictions in like a day or two, but I give them a legitimate shot, and a lot of that is because of the style of play that Tennessee has. It's very similar to Baltimore in terms of like the philosophy. Obviously, these two aren't running option and pistol offenses or anything, so you know, that's just a given. But these are two teams that want to run the football. They want to control time of possession. They have a great defense, you know, or great players on their defense that can help win games. And they play very differently. I mean, the Titans have a pass rush that can get home. The Ravens are one of those teams who rely on a lot of blitzes. They blitz like over 50% of the time. So there's a good chance you could see some first down blitzes from the Baltimore Ravens for sure. And I think the Titans, like I said, they match up good. Derrick Henry, you know, can run the ball on this team. I think that's the one area where the Ravens could be a little weaker depending on the matchup, is their run defense. So like I said, just early on, these two teams I think match up pretty well to each other, but we'll see when the game actually happens and what I think is going to happen in the game. So now we move on to Vikings versus Saints. There's a lot to talk about in this game, a lot to unpack. with both of these teams right here. The Vikings, nobody really gave them a shot. I picked the Saints to win, but at least I had the decency to say it would be a closer game than people expected. I did predict it to be like a one-score game, I think like 31-24, something like that. One of the basic scores that I give. But nonetheless, at least I gave them a chance. A lot of people were saying they had no chance. And a lot of people were saying it's because of Kirk Cousins, and we'll talk more about Kirk Cousins here in a little bit. But let's just start off with some of the basics, man. Welcome back, Dalvin Cook. This is the first game he's played in like a month. And he comes back. He didn't get 100 yards rushing. He got like 96 or something. But he had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he was a very impactful part for the offense. Yeah, we're going to give Kirk Cousins his due. We're going to give a little credit to Adam Thielen as well. But at the end of the day, excuse me, I tried to say like 4 words at once. At the end of the day, Dalvin Cook is the real difference maker for this team. It's not a secret. Yes, Alexander Mattison is a good back. He's proving that. Mike Boone's okay, but they're not the talent that Dalvin Cook is. Sure, you can get production out of basically any running back in the league, but they're not going to have the same impact as Dalvin Cook. You know, it goes back to the whole Le'Veon Bell, James Conner thing that we talked about in years past. Yeah, James Conner can give you production, but he's not Le'Veon Bell at the end of the day. He doesn't provide what he provides. So anyway, let's focus on something that's relevant, and that's playoff teams. Kirk Cousins, man, shout out to him. He played very well in the fourth quarter and in overtime. Troy Aikman, of course, with the call saying, quote, that throw was the throw of Kirk Cousins' career. Talking about the deep shot he took to Adam Thielen to set up for the game-winning touchdown drive in overtime. The Saints, you know, they had a lot of forgettable moments, especially Drew Brees. He had a bad fumble, I think, in the fourth quarter. He did have an interception, but it's basically like punting the football because he threw it like 50 yards down the field, and Anthony Harris happened to pick him off. And by the way, Anthony Harris, you know, I think he leads the league in interceptions or tied or something. He has 7 picks on the year, but he's the only quarterback this season, and this is very big right here. This is a big deal. Anthony Harris is the only quarterback in the NFL, only corner, or the only player. Man, I can't get the stat out. Anthony Harris is a safety, for those that are wondering. I'm sorry, I keep tripping over words because I'm trying to like read and, you know, do stuff, but Anthony Harris is the only defensive player this season to pick off Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. That's huge, okay? Like, he just picked off 3 of the best quarterbacks this year and in the NFL in the last several years. So that's huge for him. Shout out to him. The Vikings defense, man, I gotta be honest, did they play their best game? Probably, or probably not, depending on who you ask, but definitely, in my opinion, the most impactful performance they've had all season, and it came at the right time. Wild card weekend against a team that nobody gave you a shot against. And for more context on that, you look at Bleacher Report. They do playoff brackets or whatever every time around this year. 95% of playoff brackets had the New Orleans Saints advancing against the Minnesota Vikings. So according to Bleacher Report anyway, only 5% of people who filled out brackets had Minnesota advancing into the divisional round. So that just goes to show you a lot of people didn't have faith in the Vikings. I did, but obviously I didn't pick them to win. So how much faith did I really have in them? At the end of the day, I guess not enough. But Taysom Hill, we'll talk about him for a little bit, and the memes about, oh, they wouldn't have lost that game if Taysom Hill was at quarterback. I guess we'll talk about that too. But Taysom Hill made a few big plays. You know, I think he had a long rushing play on like a quarterback draw. He had a big-time catch. He had a big-time throw. And he had a lead block that led to a touchdown for Alvin Kamara. So, yeah, he did some impactful things in this game. He was the difference maker for New Orleans, like I kind of predicted in predictions. That he would be the big time difference maker because obviously he does a little bit of everything, playing special teams. Of course, he doesn't field kicks anymore. That's Deontay Harris's job, but he did at one point. But people were actually saying that, and I know part of it was a meme. I think some people were dead serious. So, people were actually saying, if Taysom Hill were playing quarterback the entire game, this team would actually win. Let me explain something. If Taysom Hill is as good of a quarterback as people seem to think he is all of a sudden, Sean Payton would have played him over Teddy Bridgewater when Drew Brees got hurt. Plain and simple, but he didn't, because at the end of the day, Sean Payton, just like smart football fans, know what Taysom Hill is. He's a great athlete. He is not a full-time quarterback. The role that he has is very unique, and the aspect of him doing everything, playing special teams, running the football, catching the football, blocking, even getting to throw the football. And hell, even if that's the case, why don't they give him more chances to throw the football? If he's such a great quarterback, why isn't that the case? I just think the whole argument for him is stupid. Yeah, he's a great athlete, don't get me wrong. He does a lot of great things. I'm a little upset that Green Bay let him go, but Green Bay wouldn't have gave him the opportunity that he has in New Orleans. So I think that also gets undersold a bit. But listen, I give Taysom Hill credit. Like I said, great player. He does a lot of great things. Obviously, if people really believed in him as a quarterback, he would already have a chance. He'd probably be starting somewhere. But he has a unique role on a football team, and I think you compromise that by having him be your quarterback full time. And to be honest, I don't think he's all that good of a quarterback. Yeah, he had a great play to... I can't even think of who it is. Was it Traquan Smith? It was somebody for like a 50-yard pass. Yeah, he had a great pass. A lot of quarterbacks are capable of having great passes. Josh McCown threw a great pass, against Seattle. It's possible. It's doable, believe it or not. And I just want to clarify, by the way, I know a lot of people are, kind of saying, oh, that touchdown pass to Kyle Rudolph, that was pass interference. I'm here to say, breaking news, it was not pass interference. If you watch the play live in full time, instead of looking at the still image of Kyle Rudolph extending his arm to create a little bit of separation, you will have seen that there was hand checking the entire way. PJ Williams and Kyle Rudolph were hand checking each other the entire way. At the last moment, when PJ Williams was trying to basically tug at him, Kyle Rudolph extended his arm. Did it create a lot of separation? Not really. It created just enough. Did he completely push off? No, he didn't. Was it inside of 5 yards? Yes, it was. So yeah, typically inside of 5 yards, a lot of guys are going to hand check. A lot of guys are going to hand fight. There might be a little tug and a little grab here and there, but you're actually allowed to do that within 5 yards. After that, yeah, you can't get away with that shit all the time. So, no, the last play was not pass interference. I know a lot of people on TV are arguing about it, and even the NFL rules expert came out and said it's not, and he's going to catch a lot of flack for it, and I might catch a lot of flack for this, but listen, that last play was not pass interference. And listen, I'm a Green Bay fan. I don't like the Vikings. I don't want to see them do anything good. Okay, I respect them more than the other NFC North teams, but why would I just say that to say that? You know what I mean? Why would I just say, oh yeah, there was no pass interference? If I were a biased Packer fan who absolutely hated the living shit out of the Vikings, I'd say, yeah, it was. And the Saints got robbed and blah, blah, blah. They get robbed every year. Why don't they just make the plays necessary instead of relying on overtime? I don't know, man. I'm getting really sick of the Saints fans. They're starting to creep up there with the Cowboys as the most annoying fan base in the league, because every time they lose, it's the refs' fault. The refs screwed them. I don't know. And it's the same thing with anti-Packer people. People who don't like the Packers, all of a sudden it's, oh, the refs are in their back pocket. Well, if that's the case, we'd be 16-0, don't you think? But that last touchdown, definitely not pass interference in my opinion. And I got the last two questions right here for the Vikings and the Saints. The first one for the Vikings, of course, the winning team in overtime. Can the Vikings represent the NFC in the Super Bowl as the 6th seed? And this is a legitimate question that I posed, because the last team that did that was the 2010 2011 Green Bay Packers, who, of course, I think they went like 10-6. They had to play all of their games on the road. Their first one, dang, why can I not remember the first one? I don't know. I'm having a hard time remembering the first one. I think it was against Philadelphia, Michael Vick and the Eagles, and we ended up outlasting them. And then, of course, we go to Chicago to play the one-seeded Bears. The infamous B.J. Raji pick six. I think that was the year it happened, or maybe it was the year after. I can't remember. And then we go to Atlanta for the AFC Championship. We win that game, and then we beat Pittsburgh. So we won all of our games on the road. Just great stuff right there. Can the Vikings do it? I think so. You know, I'm a firm believer in getting hot at the right time. Yeah, there are teams that entered the playoffs that were hot and they got cooled down very quickly, but if you create momentum in the playoffs, it's a dangerous thing, and I think the Vikings have done that, and I do give them a real shot next week against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you look at all the matchups on paper, the only mismatch, honestly, is the pass rush of the 49ers against the Vikings offensive line. But then again, I could say the same thing about the 49ers offensive line versus the Vikings pass rush. Because there were instances in this game where Everson Griffin was a rushing defensive tackle, and they put Anthony Barr as a defensive end, which he has experience doing at UCLA. He was an off-ball linebacker, you know, and he also was a pass rusher a little bit at times. So I can make the same argument either way. I actually do give this team a legitimate chance to make some noise. Like, they could go on a run. Could they represent the NFC? I don't know. Let's take it a week at a time, but I give them a great shot at doing so. Is next season the final chance at a legit Super Bowl run for the Saints? I think so, man, because eventually you're going to have to pay Alvin Kamara, you're going to have to pay Ryan Ramczyk, you're going to have to pay Marcus Williams. You're going to have to start paying the guys in that 2017 draft class, the one that they damn near hit on every single pick. Like, at some point, you're going to have to pay those guys, and it is going to be tough. It's going to be tough to pay those guys. So, yeah, I do think next year will probably be the last chance. And plus, we have to consider, you know, is Drew Brees going to come back? I imagine he does. Let's see. Also, like, do they re-sign Teddy Bridgewater? Are they going to re-sign future starting quarterback Taysom Hill? I don't know. They might. So, I mean, they still have a lot of questions internally right now to answer in-house. But next season, yeah, I think it could be. I think it actually could be. And I'm sure Falcons fans, Bucs fans, and Carolina Panther fans would love to see that. Now, finally, Seahawks versus Eagles. Carson Wentz, man, the dude got hurt again. I mean, he got knocked out of the game with a concussion. Now, here's the question. Was it a dirty hit? I'll be honest, it's really close. It's really close. I don't think Clowney had any intention of trying to hurt Carson Wentz. But then again, who knows? Maybe he did. I don't know. That's one that I'm not too sure about. I can't really say. I'm not going to accuse my future opponent of doing such a thing. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't, like, just watching it over and over, it's 50-50. But Carson Wentz got hurt, and it's crazy because he's the only guy that really stayed healthy for all 16 games. Then he gets into the wild card round, and boom, he gets hurt on, like, the second series. Doug Peterson ruled him out. They took him out of the game. Yeah, that was over, man. It sucks. Sucks to see. Let's see, man. The Eagles honestly played a good defensive game. They just gave up a couple of deep passes. You know, their secondary just didn't play well. You know, at the end of the day, their Achilles heel, their secondary just did not play well. And to be honest, their secondary, yeah, it's bad, okay? Like, we knew it'd be the weakest unit of the team coming in, but we didn't think it'd be this much of a liability. I mean, it is bad. Like, Ronald Darby is terrible. Like, he's been terrible this year, at least. I feel like they don't play Sidney Jones enough. He could be the best corner on their roster. They don't play him enough. Jalen Mills is a safety playing corner. Like, he was drafted as a safety. He's much better as a safety, and here he is trying to play corner. Avonte Maddox, you know, a lot of people seem to like him as like a nickel corner. I mean, I don't know. He's just another guy at this point to me. Like, their best corner might be Sidney Jones, and they don't play him enough, so I don't know what to make of that. Let's see. Josh McCown had to come in, and he did about everything you could expect. He made some good throws. He was under pressure all night. Seattle's pass rush had, like, I don't know, 6 sacks. I mean, they were pretty active. But the Seahawks rushing attack, you know, it's something we're going to talk about, because the identity of this team, or at least the identity that Pete Carroll wants this team to have, is a team that can run the football and Russell Wilson can do his thing based on the run game. Well, Seattle had 17 rushing attempts for 19 yards. That's bad. Okay, they did get the touchdown. It was a 5-yard rushing touchdown for Marshawn Lynch. You know, and he's been fine. You know, eventually it feels like he's got to break out and have a big run or a big game. Who knows? It could be next week against my Green Bay Packers, because we give up big games to everyone, it seems like. But, you know, I mean, I got to be honest. The run game just wasn't good for Seattle. I know it's a part of their identity. It's their philosophy, but it really wasn't that good. But I give them props for not giving up on the run, at least, if that counts for anything. We got to talk about DK Metcalf, though. Man, oh man. I say it like every video we talk about either AJ Brown or DK Metcalf, but they were tied for my #1 receiver, both of them, and they went to the same damn school. I mean, DK just passed the eye test. Yes, he does have a little bit of a drop concern, but he is such a physical specimen, man. He's a freak. He's very fast. He's very strong. And he can run some routes, man. I'm sick and tired of hearing people saying, oh, you can't run routes. Can you? Can you run routes? The guy talking shit behind a keyboard? Can you? I mean, hell, DK Metcalf looks pretty good to me. Ran a couple of those routes pretty well that he did. But he had 7 catches for 160 yards, which is now a rookie playoff record, and ironically broke an Eagles record. Jeremy Maclin was the rookie receiver who held the record with like 149 rushing yards, or no, receiving yards, excuse me. And DK Metcalf gets 160. I think he had a touchdown as well on a deep shot. And then on the 3rd down to help clinch the game, DK Metcalf catches like a 40-yard pass. Just great stuff, man. I love DK Metcalf. Just watching him play. I'm going to hate it next week because I wanted Green Bay to draft DK Metcalf. You know, I think last year, I don't know, man. Last year I was like, you know, honestly, if we can't get DK Metcalf, I'd like to get AJ Brown at like pick 30. DK fell all the way until the end of the 2nd round. I don't know how. 8 receivers were drafted ahead of him, including one of them that the Eagles had on their team, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who, I'm going to be honest, is a poor man's Alshon Jeffrey. And I didn't really like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I say it every time he gets brought up. I was not a big fan of his tape. I didn't see the hype. And J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I didn't see it. I don't know why scouts had the audacity to put him as a top 5 receiver in the class. I did not see that. I don't even think he should have been a top 10 receiver in the class, to tell you the truth. I mean, he'd probably be like the 14th best receiver if we did this all over. Like Darius Slayton, who was like a 6th round pick and was a glorified kick returner, like at Auburn, is better than he is. I don't know. I never understood the selection. I think Washington selected 2 receivers better than him in this draft. Terry McLaurin and Kelvin Harmon. To tell you the truth, like, I don't know. I was never a big fan of the selection. I still don't understand. But we got 2 questions right here. One for Seattle, one for Philadelphia, of course. We'll start with Philadelphia. Are the Eagles going to win the division next year? I mean, you got to think, this division is in shambles. 3 coaching changes. 2 of them, one of them I like. One of them I'm optimistic about. The other one, it's more of a wait-and-see approach. You can probably piece together which one I like. Obviously, Mike McCarthy, former Green Bay Packer. I like the Ron Rivera one a lot. But he's got a lot of work to do. You know, like, he can establish an identity and a culture, but he's got some work to do. You look at Mike McCarthy. We'll see if he truly innovated or if he's going to run the same plays from 2009. We'll just have to wait and see. He seems to like Kellen Moore. Maybe let Kellen Moore handle the offense. I mean, the team's got to learn how to score points. We know that in terms of yards gained as an offense, they were like number one. They got to score some damn points, okay? And then you look at Joe Judge. We'll see. You know, I'm not going to shit on him immediately. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's safe to say the Eagles could probably win this division next year. I think the Redskins will be trying to take a step in the right direction. I think the Giants are going to try to find themselves. Dallas, they have the roster to compete, but again, the unknown. How good is Mike McCarthy going to be after his year away from the game? Philadelphia is the only consistent thing we have going, you know, in terms of that division. So good luck trying to identify who does what. And then for Seattle, can they capture that lightning in a bottle? I think they can. You know, that game next week against Green Bay is going to be tough. I'm not going to sit here as a Packer fan and be like, yeah, easy work. Because it's not. Let's face it. Anytime you go up against Russell Wilson, it's not easy work. It's not a walk in the park. I don't care about Russell Wilson's past against, you know, Green Bay in Lambeau Field. I don't care about that. That doesn't apply to 2020. That doesn't apply to this NFL season. I don't care about what happened years ago. You know, I don't even care about what happened in that 2014 NFC Championship game that we blew against Seattle in CenturyLink. I mean, this rivalry between Green Bay and Seattle is probably one of the most underrated non-division rivals out there, or rivalries out there. You know, like, these two teams have had great moments against each other, controversial moments in other spots, history-making moments. I mean, it's just been a bizarre little rivalry here, and it's going to re-spark in the playoffs. And according to the weather report, it might snow in Green Bay, which people are already theorizing, oh yeah, it's a snow game, Green Bay's gotta win. You know, like, we'll see. I mean, apparently we have the refs in our back pocket. We're not a convincing team. We don't do this, we don't do that. Our offense got worse, blah blah blah. I don't know, but yet we're 13-3. It's weird. We're not a perfect team. We're extremely flawed, and yet we're 13-3. I don't know. It's weird. But I think Seattle can. They're very capable of doing so. They have Russell Wilson on their team, who I'd say is probably the best quarterback in the NFL right now. I think it's safe to say. I know people will say Lamar Jackson because of, you know, he's going to win the MVP, but Russell Wilson to me is the best quarterback in the league right now. Safe to say. But hopefully you guys enjoy. Good luck to your team if they're still in the playoffs. You know, best of luck. I'll be dropping my prediction video on Friday, probably Friday evening, who knows. But see you guys then. Until then, I gotta say, peace out.